The Microsoft Office Accessibility Checker can be a very handy tool to help you ensure that your Office documents are better for everyone, and specifically to help you make your documents conform to accessibility standards for people with disabilities, standards like WCAG 2.0 and 2.1. Hi, I'm David Berman, and today I'm demonstrating for you how to best make use of the Office Accessibility Checker in your Word files, your PowerPoint files, Excel files, even Visio and Outlook have the Office Accessibility Checker in them. And although I'll be showing you today a sample file that's not yet accessible in the latest Word 365 for Windows, the Accessibility Checker has been around for over 10 years. And it works equally well on Word 365 for Mac OS and PowerPoint, Excel, etc. However, the important thing to know, to keep in mind, is that an automated checker can only go so far. So it's a really helpful tool. We just can't rely upon it to find all the issues that may be needing attention in your file. Let me show you. So in the file we have here today, I'm going to be showing you the accessibility checker, and I'm going to describe as I go so you can learn what you need to know just by listening or reading the captions. I'm going to the Review tab, and in the Review tab, in the Accessibility group, we can select Check Accessibility. And then amongst a number of choices in Check Accessibility, we're going to choose Check Accessibility. And what that does is causes this window called the Accessibility pane to appear. Now I'm going to tear it off and make it larger so that we can see all the different things, or listen to all the different things that are in this window. Now, the Accessibility Checker has, as of January 2023, 17 rules it passes, and I'm going to enlarge them all that are showing for this particular document. I'm going to drag the windows deep enough, as deep as it'll go, to show as much as we can. Now, I've on purpose taken this document and broken it in every way we can pretty well, so you can see as many things in the accessibility checker window as possible. We have missing object description, we have missing table header, image or object not in line. These are errors. Errors are things the accessibility checker absolutely thinks need attention. And then the next section, warnings, we have use of merged or split cells. We have hard to read text contrast. Those are warnings. These are things the accessibility checker figures it thinks there's probably a problem, that it needs a human to confirm that. And then finally, there's a group called tips. And so here we have no headings in document. Now I feel no headings in document is much more than a tip. I feel that should be a warning. Now, and finally, we have a group called Intelligent Services, Review Auto-Generated Description. And this is definitely also belongs to be in the warning. So there's actually 9 rules that could possibly show up in a Microsoft Word file of the 17 rules that could come up in all the different applications. There's only 2 that we're not showing here, and one of them is fairly obscure. It has to do with file security settings. And the other one is about layout tables, which, well, we just encourage you not to use layout tables anyway, so I don't have that one showing here. But in each of them, I'm just going to collapse them all again. So we're just going to examine these one at a time. We can see there's a variety of errors that are here. And we have separate videos on how to solve each of these kind of issues. Rather, I just want you to be aware of what the checker can do for us to help us locate the issues. So, for example, missing object description. Fancy way to say, in most cases, we're saying there's no alt text on an image. Now, if I expand this, it shows me how many situations it found in the file that are missing object descriptions. It's found one called picture 1, another one called picture 7, and a third one called text box. Picture 1 is referring to an image that has a problem with its alt text. Picture 7, the same. And then text box is about a text box that oddly probably is lacking text. So let's see how the checker can help us find the issue. So first of all, if I select picture 1, it will actually bring my attention to the item in question, and it also shows me some recommended actions for picture 1. It's proposing we could add a description, or we could mark it as decorative. Now in this case, this is a decorative image, so I'm going to select mark as decorative. And poof, it's solved. In fact, it disappeared from the list. And that's another nice way the checker works, is that as you resolve issues, they're going to disappear from the list. And indeed, now for this object, we could have used our classic approach of marking it decorative, choosing view alt text, and in the resulting alt text box, we would have the opportunity to mark it as decorative. So whether you went in and used the typical technique of making the object marked as decorative, or you took the shortcut that the accessibility checker offered you of offering a solution and then you selected it, the file is changed in the same way. The outcome is the same whether we do it automatically through this checker or whether we do it in a classic way. So let's look at our next one. Here's another picture. So this picture is, we have an image here. We're seeing an image looks like a floor plan of some sort. Now, I could again mark as decorative, but that wouldn't be the right answer because this isn't a decorative image. There's some important stuff here. So if I selected add a description, it brings up the alt text window and has my prompt waiting for me to write something like diagram of the floor plan for, and in our video about how to write alt text, we get into it deeper. But the point being, now that I've given it some sort of alt text, when I go back to our accessibility checker, it's gone from the list as well. Now this next one, text box. We've got a text box, and indeed, it doesn't have any content. And so let's see what happens if I put some content in it. All right, I'm a text box. And as soon as I started typing, it disappeared from the list as well. So you see how we're using the checker as a checklist of things to resolve, keeping in mind though that just because we've resolved everything in the accessibility checker doesn't mean we've done everything we need to do to make a document accessible. Our next one here is a missing table header. We'll learn about that in our video about how to make tables accessible. This next one is image or object not in line. We'll learn there's two pictures that have that challenge. I'm going to select, it's the same picture that's got that issue. Again, we'll have a lesson on how to deal with that. It's offering us the choice of place this in line or mark as decorative, and we're not going to select that right now. The next warning here is use of merged or split cells. So it's talking about cells within a table. And so it's pointing out that we have a table, and I'll select the table. And indeed here we have a table. And look here, we've got a cell. If you know anything about tables, you know that if we have a cell that spans more than one column, that's what we call a merged cell. And merged cells, unfortunately, in Microsoft Word, make the table not accessible. So one of the other nice things about the accessibility checker is it leads us right to the help topic about whatever we're talking about here. Here's some guidance on merging or splitting cells. And if I go back to the checker, something else I really like about how the checker works is that it offers us additional information in this pane at the bottom, which I can expand or collapse. And so it gives me very well written instructions on why should we fix this and the steps to fix this. And that's specific to whatever issue we're currently focused on. And then the next warning is about hard to read text contrast. So this is talking about the contrast of colors. And so I'm going to select the town of Trillium zoning. And indeed we have, look at, so I'm showing a paragraph where the foreground color, the color of the text, is very light compared to the background, which is white. And so the contrast of the light color against the background is not sufficient. Now, here's an example of where the accessibility checker is both help and hindrance. There's actually an official rule as to exactly how much minimum contrast we need to conform to the accessibility standard called WCAG 2.0. And yet the accessibility checker warning doesn't actually use the same ratios that WCAG does. And so just because you change this color to a color that's sufficient contrast to get rid of the warning doesn't mean you've actually got a conformed color. Now, if I highlight this and let's say change the color of the type to black, I'm highlighting the entire paragraph that the warning's about, and I were to change the color to black, so it's now black on white, well, there's no question the black on white is plenty of contrast, and indeed the warning goes away. However, if I had changed it, let's say something which is, let's say, a light blue, well, we'd have to pull out our color contrast tools, which we'll have another video about, specifically dealing with color contrast and knowing how much contrast is sufficient or not. However, we see the warning went away, and now there's this last item we're moving into the tips, and there's a tip here about there's no headings in the document, which is a problem because we do need a heading structure in any document of any length, and this document's got 13 pages, so it definitely needs to have a heading structure. So in this document, it's proposing, my recommended action is to review the document navigation. When I select that, it brings up the navigation pane, and the navigation pane has headings, pages, and results, but it's the headings list that would show us all the headings unless there aren't any, in which case there are no headings, which means that's why it's complaining about there not being any headings. And indeed, if I take one of these items that has the visual look of a heading, I'm highlighting a phrase parking and loading provisions, and I'm going to go to the styles and assign that to a heading of, let's say, a heading level 2. Now we have at least one heading showing up on the heading list in the navigation pane. I go back to the accessibility checker, and indeed the warning about not having any headings is gone, but certainly that's not sufficient. This document has dozens of items that ought to be marked as a heading, and so just marking one heading is enough to get the checker to be quiet about this matter, but it's not enough to make the document accessible. The final matter we're going to see in this accessibility checker is the review auto-generated description. This is about the alt text that the AI engine will try to assign to images that lack alt text. And so there's one case of that, picture 6. And if I select picture 6, it takes me right to this item called, it's highlighting the Town of Trillium logo that's on the first page of the document. And if we see what suggestions it has an opportunity for us to verify the description or mark it as decorative. I'm going to verify the description. It's showing me the alt text for that image, which is currently written a blue leaf with a white background. Description automatically generated with low confidence. So this was generated by Microsoft Word's AI engine, which tries to write alt text. Very rarely, if ever, does a good job. So I'm going to replace that with logo of Town of Trillium. And we'll go back to the accessibility checker. And indeed, that warning is now gone. So this is the idea. We simply move the accessibility checker. It helps us, but it only helps us in 9 ways in a Word file, 17 ways in when we look at all Office documents together. And so it's a great tool to find certain types of problems and to make it very easy to get right to fixing them. But we always have to use manual testing to make a file accessible. And even automated tests that you could dream up that Microsoft could add to the tester aren't present. So it's helpful, but it's not thorough. And so use it wisely. And that's it. If you have any questions, please post them or contact us at wcag2.com. That's WCAG digit2.com. Or join one of our courses to go way deeper. See you next time.